of a grade schooler.
Well,
And she's already in the midst of forming that.
okay, we're looking at my tattoo. At least a part of my tattoo. And there's the other part of my tattoo. Anyway. So you're talking about this lady who's put together the history education program for Black Americans, correct?
A, not the,
A.
form of education, like pace books, right? She's doing it one unit of education at a time. Segments.
And we want to talk to her about gamifying the education.
I just took an opportunity to contact her and plant a seed
Okay.
where the seed is along the line she's going of embracing diversity and cultural history and roots, and at the same time adding in objectivity to it, the hows and whys. Like, if you want a seat at the table, it's not necessarily something that you should be given until you earn it, just like respect. Milestones like diversity, inclusion, having a voice. Unless if you hit a certain mark, you should not have a voice.
Right.
Unless if you can come to the table and bring a sound mind, objectivity, reason, creativity, you haven't hit that mark yet, so you should not be heard until you have learned how to do that. Otherwise, it's going to be a contamination of anybody that's involved in their efforts. There should be a process prior to that where you're educating people, they're learning and growing into being able to apply those tools.
And what we're presenting is not giving them a narrative, but letting them discover the narrative and create their own narrative. Because there's the component of not only learning history, not
Right.
only of your heritage and legacy of the past, but being able to use the tools that have been gained through that heritage, because they're your tools too.
Correct.
And that helps with the creating a better narrative for yourself, which in turn helps others, encourages others to do the same.
What we know as history is a small amount of truth and a large amount of bias.
Right.
It's a matter of perspective of the scenarios at hand during that time.
And the history is usually written by those who win.
Right. So,
At least the predominantly accepted history. There's still going to be other narratives out there, alternatives.
exactly. And so this educator is bringing in cultural history to better educate K-12 to understand where they're from and things that make them different and make them unique. It's important for everybody, I think, to understand that. I'm altruistic, but I'm also elitist. So, based in objectivity. So, you should not, I don't think you should be getting, a champion's award if you didn't accomplish the milestones in order to achieve that.
Right.
Like a Champions Award is not the same, it's not on the same par level as a participation award. And a lot of that has been lost, at least from what we're seeing these days,
Yeah. Mediocrity
throughout.
is being celebrated instead of
Right.
excellence.
Including in uh, different areas of diversity, including various cultures, a wide range of them. I think personally that when anyone at any level is educated in culture, it should be showing both sides of what happened, providing as much full context as possible from what you do have to work with, and then reworking it yourself, not just absorbing what you're being handed. Everything should be analyzed, and that is really important because it helps people learn how to think and question themselves, question authority, question all these different factors in reasoning. And a lot of people don't even realize how many factors are involved in the decisions that they make daily,
Yes.
and how much that puts them on a different path from where they might ultimately be um, most happy, most successful, have the highest quality of life.
So would you say that there are three sides to every story?
Generally speaking, yes, there's side A, there's side B, and then in between is like B, A, B, where it's
Or
a
VA?
combination of the two,
Right.
where it's the center line being the actual truth
Right.
or closest mark to the
Closest.
truth. And we are able to best filter that with our own cognizance when we're able to be analytical and use our creativity to think up different things that may or may not have been a factor. That's why I'm a huge advocate for building things up and tearing them down with near equivalency in enthusiasm.
Right.
Because by doing that, you're able to hone what you're going to gain as a result.
Well, and that's why we're taking this stance of gamifying reality is because it should be fun for people to discover new angles of a story in order to get a fuller understanding. Because there aren't just two sides. It's not just black and white. It's somewhere in the middle, like you're saying, in the gray area. And the only way we can be sure that we're fully informed is if we look at all of those angles first.
To a degree, I disagree. There is a black and white that we have to be able to define for ourselves. And there is a lot of shading. Just because something might be black and white doesn't mean that there isn't any shading. It doesn't exclude anything. Because we're always going to be logically, when we're logical and being objective, we are forced to recognize that there are polar extremes which essentially are near par or near the same level as the laws of averages. The majority of the time is this, and the majority of the time it goes this way. It doesn't, a lot of people have, they glitch and they don't realize that when you specify in language the majority of time or most of the time, that you're talking about most of the time, exactly what you're saying. rather than all all of these people, or all of that. They're filling in the gaps because of their lack of education and lack of ability to facilitate the tools that they've been given, even if they were only given subtly and not stressed, where they may not have been exercised to where they actually come into real world where they're being applied. Like, while you're being raised, some things like asking the child, why did you do this, what were you thinking, those might happen while the child is being brought up, but not focused on enough to become ingrained for them to realize how important it is to think of that.
To be.
It might have just been situational. That might be one mindset that they're thinking, like it's not that important. Just this person, like my parent or teacher or friend of the family was asking, and it's just relative to them, and that's not healthy for the children, and it's not healthy for anyone overall to be thinking like that. The more critical, the more we question anything and everything throughout our life at any age, particularly from, say, toddlerhood through full maturity, the more we're able to have an anchoring of stability and clarity and increased freedom within ourselves. We won't be in fear of challenging someone, or afraid of someone else's feelings, hurting their feelings, or someone hurting our feelings because we're afraid to speak up.
Just because something is typically difficult doesn't mean it shouldn't be dismissed.
Exactly. We as a people, we as humans, have gone exactly backwards from what's most helpful for us and most productive. We should be embracing challenge
Right.
of every sort. If we're going to have the mindset of we're awesome, we're skilled, we're adaptive, we're dominant, we kick ass, then we should actually be walking that.
Yeah. Let's act that way.
And when we don't walk that in reality, in our daily life, whether in front of people or hidden, behind closed doors, then we're hypocrites and liars. And that ultimately hurts us individually, and as a ramification or repercussion, the natural consequences, that's going to ripple out and hurt everybody. It's going to hurt our families, it's going to hurt our neighborhoods, it's going to hurt our government, it's going to hurt our commerce.
Yeah.
So the less lazy we as humans are, the more we own what we say, the more we own our own realities,
Yep.
the more we own our benefits and our losses.
And once you own it, you can create anything. You can do pretty much anything.
You could also call this a character building exercise, strictly based from the ability to think critically.
And so you wanted to bring a presentation to this individual regarding the courses that she has and whether or not she's thought of gamifying it. Because not only can we gamify reality in the present, but also have historical information gamified and part of the education in the game itself.
Right. Anytime we have critical thinking applied, it's the initial spark that's necessary to help clarify any of the muddied waters. So in this instance, we're talking about cultural history. And if we initiate that spark of critical thinking, it adds, it's automatically going to broaden the context in which the people learning it are going to view. They're going to be able to perceive and understand the the material, the information in a different way, which is going to be like tenfold better than when something like critical thinking is omitted or not stressed or exercised. It's a big difference between indoctrination and bringing up into autonomy. Do we want to raise up slaves, or do we want to raise up independent thinkers and leaders,
Right.
strong individuals? And those strong individuals inherently understand these factors.
Many of them went through very adverse situations in order to become strong. Like they took those challenges and ran with them pretty much.
The large majority, in fact.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare where we've ever had a figure in history of any culture basically be spoon-fed. You know, they've got a silver spoon in their mouth. They've had things handed to them. They've had things very easy. And they came out as a fantastic leader.
Well, as you were talking with Jesse yesterday, and he asked, "So, you're creating leaders?" Yeah, well, of course, and everybody can be a leader in their own field, in their own understanding, as long as they take that critical thinking and use it and apply it in their daily lives.
And they're the ones that will limit that potential.
Right.
No one is ever going to be equal to another.
No.
That's the reality that a lot of people are bucking against. If we all had the same potential, then our independence would be nullified. We would be more akin to robots.
Yep.
Or slaves.
Automatons.
The fact that we are all independently so unique is absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. And it comes with a huge responsibility that we independently bear. Where do we want to go? What do we want to be? If you want the best, you have to earn that right.
Yeah.
And it's a right that no one can take from you. It's a right that we've been born with. And it's our responsibility to ensure that that happens. Not everybody has that energy or stamina or even education that they have such an amazing potential. And that's something I'm incredibly excited to participate in sparking in others.
Break free of the shackles and chains that you have been dealt and become empowered in your own critical thinking capacity.
Correct. And unfortunately, a large number of people scream and shout about how they want freedom and independence and they want better for all. At the same time, how many are willing to do that?
Right.
There's a lot of people out there that mimic, most of society, in fact, these days, mimic the story of the boy that cried wolf. I think we all kind of
False
need a reminder,
flags. False flags.
right? And the more often it happens, the more everybody becomes nullified to it or
Numb.
numb. And that hurts the people that do have the spark to do better with or without help.
Y'all spark.
At the same time, it also makes it easier for them.
Right.
A lot of it comes down to a matter of perspective.